Good morning, friends. Great to see you. Thanks, Millie, for reading the Bible. Well, here is a passage that seems very relevant to our times. Did you notice verse 7, wars and rumours of wars? Verse 7, we read that as we know of Russia invading Ukraine and great loss of life, children being killed, a maternity hospital being bombed, and the Russians closing in on the capital. Wars and rumours of wars. Yes, tick, we can see that. Jesus spoke here in verse 8 of natural disasters, earthquakes in various places and famines, verse 8. Natural disasters, and well, we've had the volcanic eruption off the coast of Tonga in January with a tsunami in the Pacific. We've had devastating floods in northern New South Wales and Queensland particularly. So again, yes, tick, natural disasters, yes, we see that. Luke, in his record of Jesus' words here, adds pestilence or plague or pandemic, same thing. And of course, we've had 2 years of the deadly COVID-19 pandemic, pestilence. And it goes on with all of the sickness and the loss of life, the social, the economic disruption that this terrible pandemic has caused. Pestilence. Yes, Jesus, tick, we've seen it. We see it now. Surely this is a passage for our times. Surely this is relevant to us. Yes, friends, we are meant to recognize our world in this teaching. We're meant to. We're meant to see the signs in this teaching. We're meant to sit up and listen and ask ourselves what all of this means. Yes, this is a very relevant passage, like all of the Bible. But it's hard to understand, isn't it? It's relevant, but it's difficult. It's a confusing style of writing. That's partly why we're not that used to it. It's a special type of writing. It's called apocalyptic writing. We see it in other parts of the Bible, Daniel and Revelation. To give you an example, they're hard parts of the Bible. Maybe that's why I haven't preached on them just yet. They're very difficult parts of the Bible. This is apocalyptic writing. Mark 13. It's writing that uses lots of images, lots of pictures to teach us a message. And Jesus is drawing heavily on Daniel here, a book filled with this apocalyptic, symbolic writing. So what's it all about? The end of the world, yes. But when exactly does that come? Is it with Jesus' death on the cross, just days away? Is it with Jesus' resurrection to glory? Is it with the destruction of the Jewish temple? Is it with the return of Jesus in glory? That day that we're waiting for as well. Or is Jesus somehow talking about some of these things at the same time? What is it all about? And can I say, many very great Christian teachers who love the Bible come to different conclusions about exactly what Jesus is saying. It's not an easy passage, friends. We must come to it humbly. We must help each other. It's clearly relevant, but it's difficult, so we need God's help. We've prayed already, but let's ask again. We need God's help. Let's pray, friends. Father God, we praise you for this word from your Son, Jesus, about the end of the world. We need your help, Father, to understand it, and we thank you that we're not alone as we come to the Bible. So by the power of your Spirit, open our eyes that we may understand Jesus' teaching here, and that we may live wisely in light of what Jesus says. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. It's very clear what Jesus wants his disciples and us to do. Watch. That's very clear. That command runs throughout the passage. So verse 5, Jesus said to them, watch out that no one deceives you. Verse 5, watch out. 7 times, though, it's in the passage. If you've got it open, you might like to roll your eyes down. Verse 5, I've just read, watch out that no one deceives you. Verse 9, verse 23, verse 33, be on your guard. Verse 33, be alert. Verse 35, keep watch. Verse 37, watch. I hope we get the message, friends. There's not many things that Jesus commands 7 times. Watch. But what are we to watch for? Are we watching? Are you watching? Am I watching? What are we watching for? Should we be constantly watching for something? Should we have a church webcam out on the top of the building watching? Should we employ a church watchman to watch? But what would we tell them to watch for? It's a difficult passage. We're to watch, but what for? Well, I hope we'll see that as we go on, friends. I hope we'll see that. Because it's normal when things are difficult to look for or to watch for something stable. I think that's just normal. If I think back to the September 11 attacks, just over 20 years ago now, if I think back to that day, which I remember well, what a distressing day. And those images are etched in my mind. A distressing and horrific day. One of the first things that I and my family did was call each other. We just rang each other on the phone to make sure that we were all okay, even though we're on the other side of the world. On a distressing day, we wanted stability. In an unstable time, I wanted something stable, family. We all rang each other up. The disciples do something similar here with Jesus. They sense the growing tension, the conflict between Jesus and the Jewish leaders. So they go for something stable. They point to the temple to encourage Jesus. Verse 1. Have a look with me, friends. As Jesus was leaving the temple, one of his disciples said to him, "Look, teacher, what massive stones, what magnificent buildings." And the disciple was right. The temple was impressive. Its building had been going for 50 years by now. It was started in 19 BC. It wasn't finished yet, but it had been 50 years in the making, 50, still going. It had massive stones covered in gold. Tacitus, the Roman historian, not a Christian, he spoke of it. He said it was a building of immense wealth. A glorious building. I think I've got one image of it, a model of it that someone's put together. It was a very impressive building. But more than that, the temple was the house of God. It's where God chose to dwell and to meet with his people. And it represented the victory of God over his enemies. So the disciple encouraging Jesus might have been thinking of a psalm like this, Psalm 48, verses 12 to 14. Walk about Zion, go around her, count her towers, consider well her ramparts, view her citadels, that you may tell of them to the next generation. For this God is our God forever and ever. He will be our guide even to the end. Do you see what the disciple is doing, encouraging Jesus, pointing to the temple? Look, Jesus, we're going to win in the end. It's all going to be okay. Watch the temple, said the disciples. That's our stability in an unstable world. So what Jesus says next is shocking. Verse 2, Jesus replies, "Do you see all these great buildings? Not one stone will be left here on another. Everyone will be thrown down." Shocking. Don't look to the temple, says Jesus. It's coming to an end. Its days are numbered. It's about to be overthrown, stone by stone. You want stability in these unstable days? It's not in the temple. This would have been shocking for the disciples. And in their mind, this meant the end of the world, the coming of God's judgment day. The Old Testament prophets had spoken about this. Jeremiah, Daniel, Malachi. The destruction of the temple meant judgment day, the end of the world. And so the disciples, they want to know when. They want to be ready. Verse 4, tell us, when will these things happen? And what will be the sign that they are all about to be fulfilled? Jesus doesn't answer their question the way they want. They want to know when. They want a date so that they'll be ready. Jesus doesn't tell them when. Jesus tells them how to wait until the end comes. They want to know how long they've got to wait. Well, Jesus tells them how to live while they wait. And Jesus says, expect suffering. That's what Jesus says to his followers. Expect suffering in these last days. Verses 5 to 8. Follow with me, friends. Verses 5 to 8. Jesus said to them, watch out that no one deceives you. Many will come in my name, claiming I am he, and will deceive many. When you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places and famines. These are the beginning of birth pains. Jesus is talking about signs of the end. Like Mitch helped us to think about, signs. And it will be distressing. There will be signs of the fallenness of humanity. Wars and rumors of wars, nation rising against nation. There will be signs of the fallenness of the natural world. Natural disasters, earthquakes, floods, famines. And we see all these signs right now, don't we? The signs aren't the end. The signs mean the end is close. They're the birth pains, says Jesus. When a pregnant mother gets birth pains, she knows there's a baby coming soon. She needs to be ready. Get to hospital, get to a midwife, get to a birthing suite, call an ambulance, whatever. But she'd be a fool to ignore those signs. She doesn't want to be caught out. That's the image Jesus uses. So, therefore, be on your guard. Verse 9, be on your guard. Be ready, watch. And again, what does it mean to watch? It means two things, friends. It means cling to Christ and share his gospel. Cling to Christ and preach the gospel. See, these last days before the return of Christ are also times of great suffering for followers of Jesus. Jesus has begun to warn his disciples about this. He said that you've got to follow me. He said that means denying yourself and taking up your cross. Suffering, hard times. Jesus gets a bit more specific. He expands. Verses 9 to 13. Look at the suffering for followers of Jesus, like us. Verses 9 to 13, you must be on your guard. You'll be handed over to the local councils and flogged in the synagogues. On account of me, you will stand before governors and kings as witnesses to them. And the gospel must first be preached to all nations. Whenever you are arrested and brought to trial, do not worry beforehand about what to say. Just say whatever is given you at the time, for it is not you speaking, but the Holy Spirit. Brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child. Children will rebel against their parents and have them put to death. Everyone will hate you because of me, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. The Christian life won't be easy, says Jesus, not in these last days. The whole world is collapsing, nations and nature. Verses 5 to 8. Everyone's going to feel that distress, but for Christians there's something else, persecution, hatred. Exactly the sorts of things that would happen to Jesus will happen to his followers. Betrayal, hatred, arrest, even murder. I wonder if we expect these things, friends, as followers of Jesus. Following Jesus brings so much that is positive into our lives, doesn't it? I mean, following Jesus, it makes us better family members. It makes us better friends. It will make you a better worker, a better citizen, And that's really attractive, and lots of people will really like that. But following Jesus also means persecution. Persecution for his name. And Jesus is warning his disciples. He's not warning them so they get out of the way, like you do when a bus is coming at you. That's a good thing to do. You jump out of the way, but that's not Jesus' meaning here. He wants his followers to endure, to hold on to him. That's what it means to be on your guard. It means clinging to Christ and sharing Christ. Because verse 10, the gospel must first be preached to all nations. That's again what it means to watch. It's not sitting around doing nothing, looking out the window, waiting for Jesus' return. Being on watch is active, it's busy, it's sharing Christ. How are you involved in that, friends? I was encouraged. I caught up with one of our friends from our ministry in the last couple of weeks. Like many of us, he's got many responsibilities. He's a family man, he's got a job that he's busy with, but he's chosen to take some time out from those things to teach the Bible, to share the gospel to a couple of different groups around our ministry. That's watching. That's being ready. It's exactly what Jesus is talking about, clinging to Christ and sharing Christ. That's what it means to watch. Jesus has been talking in general terms about following him as we await his return. In verses 14 to 19, the focus narrows. He talks about a local specific horror coming in the lifetime of his hearers. Something called the abomination that causes desolation. What is that? Mark tells us to make sure we understand, but it's very hard to understand exactly what it is. Happily, our Bibles have a little reference, usually a footnote at the bottom, which takes us back to Daniel in the Old Testament. It's an expression used 3 times in Daniel, chapters 9, 11, and 12. You can look it up later. The expression is about the invasion of the temple by a foreign power. And in the language of Daniel, once that happens, the very next thing to come is the end of the world. Judgment. And Jesus is saying all of that is close. That is in your lifetime. Verse 30. What Daniel said will be fulfilled. The temple will be invaded by a foreign power in your lifetime. Verse 30. And when that happens, flee. And sure enough, AD 70, that's exactly what did happen. Emperor Nero, the Roman emperor, committed suicide in AD 68. It left a leadership vacuum. And by AD 70, Titus was the emperor in charge, and Titus led the destruction. Some 1 million Jews were killed, and the temple was invaded. Here's a picture of something called the Titus Arch in Rome, and it shows the Romans carrying off the 7-branch candlestick from inside the temple as plunder. The temple, God's place, would be destroyed. And the Romans would enter and they would plant their flag in the Holy of Holies. It was a dark day. God's people knew it meant the judgment of God. For God had warned of this in the prophets. And through Mark's gospel, Jesus has been warning of the coming judgment on the leadership of Israel and on the temple. We saw it with Jesus cursing the fig tree, turning the tables over in the temple that had become a den of robbers. Jesus' parable warning that the tenants would be killed for rejecting him, the capstone, the true temple. Well, all of these warnings would be fulfilled in the destruction of the temple. That was coming, says Jesus. And sure enough, it did, AD 70. And it's never been rebuilt. Not one sacrifice has been offered in that temple since. It's not there. You may know of what's left, the Wailing Wall. You may have heard of that. But even the Wailing Wall is not a part of the original temple. The Wailing Wall was a retaining wall to help support the temple, but it wasn't the original temple, for as Jesus said, not one stone would be left upon another. Do you see what Jesus is saying? The disciples look at the temple for stability. No, says Jesus, the temple is doomed. Old Israel is being judged. The temple is being replaced by Jesus himself, the Son of Man, Savior and Lord. Don't look to the temple. Look to Christ. Don't pray to the Wailing Wall. Christ is the new temple in whom we can pray directly to God. Don't take a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. Christ is where we meet God. Don't offer a sacrifice on the site of the old temple. Jesus is the final and perfect sacrifice who came as a ransom for many. And the very next thing to happen after that terrible day would be the return of the Son of Man. The return of the Son of Man. That was the teaching of Daniel, and that's now the teaching of Jesus. Verse 26, but in those days, following that distress, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. At that time, people will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. Here is the end. The collapse of the created order as we know it. Genesis 1 begins with the creation of the great lights. Here Jesus describes the dismantling of the great lights, the dismantling of the cosmos, the end of the world, Judgment Day, the return of the Son of Man, Jesus himself. It's coming, he's saying. Be ready. And friends, we've got to be ready. Notice, we don't know when. The disciples might have thought it would be immediately after the destruction of the temple. But Jesus tells us that no one knows what date it will be. Not even Jesus himself in his human nature. And it's amazing, isn't it, that people have tried to come up with a date, decoding passages in Daniel and passages like this one to tell us the day when Jesus will return. The one thing we know about the date is that we will not know the date. We just know it's soon. And we've got to be ready. The fig tree is in leaf, for the temple's been destroyed, AD 70. So summer is near. The return of the Son of Man, of Jesus. Any minute, we've got to be ready. So again, friends, watch. Watch. Cling to Christ and share Christ. For Christ is our stability in this unstable world. Christ and his gospel. See, look at those beautiful words, friends, verse 31. Have a look at verse 31, it's on the screen. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. I feel the instability of our world more than ever, and I think a lot of us do. I think a lot of us just feel anxious all the time as we look around us, as we read the news, as we look at our world, because it feels like our world is collapsing. I think what Jesus is saying is that it is. It is. And so be ready. Be ready for his return. One illustration I heard, which has stuck with me, about the times in which we live. A preacher was saying it's a little bit like those times when a building that needs to be collapsed, it's falling apart, it needs to be collapsed, it's blown up from the ground, explosives are put at the bottom, and then they're detonated, and for a fraction of a second the building just hangs there, but you actually know that it's about to collapse, and then it does. The time we live in is that fraction of a second, friends. Our world is collapsing. It is unstable, and surely the signs are clear for us right now. Look to the gospel. Look to Christ and his gospel that will never pass away. That is our stability in these last days. That's what it means to watch, friends. Cling to Christ and share Christ, the one stable thing in our unstable world. That's what the disciples needed to do, and that's what we need to do. Cling to Christ and preach Christ. The destruction of the temple was some years off for the disciples. They didn't know exactly when it would be, but it was some years off. But actually, they needed to be watching right now, said Jesus. And all of these things would actually begin even sooner, as we're going to see. For there was another terrible day, just days away for Jesus and the disciples. Not years, but days. The day when the Son of Man, God himself, would die on a cross. And the disciples needed to watch for that day. For on that day, all of these things would begin. You remember that the curtain in the temple would be torn in two as Jesus died on the cross, just days away. This was beginning even sooner than AD 70. Would the disciples be ready? Jesus is telling them, watch. Will they? Will they cling to Christ in the days ahead? Will they share Christ in the days ahead? We'll find out, friends. Come next week, the next 2 weeks, we'll see. But that's the disciples. What about us? Will we be ready in the sufferings of our day? For we do suffer, don't we? For the very next great event to come is the return of Jesus. He is near, right at the door. Friends, in a world that is falling apart, cling to and share Christ, the one thing that will never, ever fall apart. That's what it means to watch. Are we watching? Let's pray, friends. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you so much for the teaching of Jesus. We thank you, Lord, that he is returning as judge. We thank you as well that he went to the cross first as Saviour. Father God, we thank you that Jesus gave these warnings in great love. Father, we thank you for the signs of the times so that we might be ready. Father God, give us all wisdom as we live in these days of difficulty, distress, suffering, nations fighting, natural disasters, and of course, persecution. Strengthen us to cling to Christ. We pray, Father, that not one of us would betray Christ, turn our backs, and let our love grow cold. May none of us do that, Father. Help us to endure. Help us to help each other to endure. And help us to be found ready when Christ returns, trusting him, clinging to him, and sharing him with others, that they might find stability in this collapsing world. So we do thank you so much for the warnings of Jesus, his loving protection of us. We thank you that we have something so stable in a world so fragile. We pray all of these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, question time a little bit later. Thanks, friends. I think we're going to sing.